All right, and to help us unpack this, we are now joined by our resident analyst, Clive Ramathibela-Smith of Clivera Incorporated. Thank you, as always, Clive, for coming through to join us here in our studio. I guess it's in order for me to say happy Global Entrepreneurship Week. As an entrepreneur, I think that's right for me to say that to you.
Amanda.
What does Africa have to celebrate, really, this year?
We have a lot to celebrate for us. I mean, you can start from the small business individual who sells on the street, who's trying to make the break, who's fighting hard to crack into the market, who sells bananas, who sells apples, who sells fruit, whether it's vegetables, all these things which are very good for us. Unfortunately for us, we eat very little portions of that, but these guys are doing it for themselves. But all the way to the Dangotes, the Motsipes, the El Yahudis, and the guys from the Saudi Arabian market or the oil market. All these people are all fundamentally thought-provoking individuals that want to penetrate the market and create a new platform for themselves to go forward. And they're all Africans. You can even actually include Mark Shuttleworth, and you can include Elon Musk, who's sitting there in America and coining it like you will not believe on electrical cars. So all these people have to raise their hats to Africa because this is where they were made.
Well, I mean, these are those who've made it, but I mean, there are those entrepreneurs who are still trying to make it. And one of the biggest issues entrepreneurs say they face is of course, access of funding, and it seems to be a habitual problem that they keep having. But some experts would argue that actually attracting investment is the bigger issue. Which is it, really?
You're right. You're spot on. I mean, attracting investments is one of the most pivotal things if you're an entrepreneur to actually make it, to make an example of what your business can actually do. Entrepreneurs struggle on two phases. One of them is development. What is development? What am I talking about? I'm talking about creating a platform for themselves, to have a voice, to have a channel where they can actually expose their skills, you know, because we know these people are skilled. The question is, how do they take those skills? How do they take that talent and put it on a global scale where everybody can actually see what they're capable of? And the second part, obviously, is finance, which you just spoke about now. The challenge is that for you to obtain finance, normally entrepreneurs, I'm talking from experience here, and I'm going to get a slack for this, but you go through so much financial turmoil where you get sometimes that you give up the last cent that you have, you give up the last rand that you have, and you know that takes you out of the market. All of a sudden you get blacklisted because you haven't paid your car for 2 months. All of a sudden you get blacklisted because you haven't paid your rent, your rental offices for 2 months, for 3 months, you know, and those things create a very massive hurdle. And I think that what South African government has done relatively well is to try and help entrepreneurs to get to the next level. There's so many atmospheres out there, well, platforms, I like to call them, that allow for the entrepreneur, the black entrepreneur, white entrepreneur, colored entrepreneur, Indian entrepreneur, to step up and say, look, if you meet these criteria, you'll be able to get funding from us, whether you are in the development phase or you are in the architecture phase, or whether you are actually a developed business and you need help just to make sure that those funds are coming in so that you can actually sustain your business. And these things are available, and it's just the fact that the entrepreneurs are not utilizing them to open those keys or those doors of opportunity.
I think I want to focus on, you know, maybe you could take us through really the countries that made real moves in terms of supporting and creating the infrastructure needed by entrepreneurs to grow, and maybe perhaps just to focus on this year. Which countries do you see as those that made the platform available for entrepreneurs?
I'm going to sound very biased here, and you know, sometimes these things, it's not because I'm being biased, it's because simply that's the nature and that's
I'd like
the
to say
reality.
African countries.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even in as much as I would like to concentrate on certain aspects of what the South African government has done, but it is very much irrelevant for me not to mention what kind of platforms are available locally here that make it easy for entrepreneurs to actually prosper. So, for example, South Africa, 50 million people, it's much easier, you know, to actually dissect all the numbers that are required for you to actually make it. But if you look at what Rwanda has done, for example, Florence, if you go to Nigeria, for example, and you see what Nigeria has done, Nigeria is a very difficult market because it is so seldomly waiting for opportunity, but people don't get it because If you don't know the right people, then you're not going to get your business to run forward. And the same with the Rwandan story. The Rwandan story, if you had land post the genocide, then you are able to actually utilize that land to create more opportunities for people to actually make jobs, for people to become SMMEs, to become entrepreneurs. It's the same in Lesotho, for example. I can make that example, and I hope I'll be safe. But it's the same there as well, because you know the flea market is such an open space for entrepreneurs to actually start penetrating, because there's great opportunities on the borders of either, whether it be with Swaziland or with South Africa. The opportunities are there. The creativity within the South African government that has been built has been given the opportunities to actually be able to ask the organizations to actually give you funding. But South Africans, young people, don't utilize that opportunity. They don't penetrate that. There's businesses that are waiting for South Africans to come up with a business plan, with a proposal, with a profile, to say what they're going to be doing, so that they can actually have that platform for them to actually get the funding.
But how do these young people know about these businesses? I mean, are these companies themselves saying, look at us, we are available to give you funding for your ideas?
Not only are they companies, Florence, they are organizations that are built by government to assist them. For example, I'll start on the education side, because that's where my passion lies. You know, if you go into education, you've got all these seaters that the government has established to help young entrepreneurs or young people to actually go on and build their skills development. You know, for example, if you want to become an engineer, you have to just link yourself with the MER-SETA, Manufacturing, Engineering and Related SETA, so that you can further your education in that regard. Even if you failed your matric, you still have a platform for you to actually build and actually go on and get a qualification. It's the same with artisans. Artisans, there's services SETA, there's the SETA for those who are in catering, there's a SETA for those who are in servicing lines. So all these SETAs were structured and developed for people like anybody else to get an opportunity to go in there and actually further their skills. The problem is, these individuals are not taking full advantage of what is available to them. And hence the reason why it's becoming very difficult to meet that gap between the skills and what is required as business to actually prosper. And instead of it thinning, it's actually widening, because more and more matriculants come out and they don't have the skills that they require for them to be entrepreneurs that are successful in the African continent.
Clive, I think we can go on and on about this topic. Unfortunately, we are out of time. An absolute pleasure, and I'm sure we will have this discussion another time. Thank you very much. That's Clive Ramathibela-Smith of Clivera Incorporated, our regular guest here on eNCA.